Hey there, this is Eric Hollenbeck, Director of Percussion Studies at Colorado State University. In this video, we're basically talking about the mallet etude for the 2015-16 All-State Band and Orchestra Percussion Etudes. And this is basically from page 26 of recital pieces for mallets by Garwood Whaley. And this is the jig from Partita number 3. And the jig obviously is the faster dance of the several other dances that go on, like the sarabande and minuet. But the jig is typically faster and felt in one. And the suggested tempo that they give you is 66 to 74. And if you listen to most violinists, which I heavily recommend that you do, they're somewhere in the 74 range or up a little bit from that. So I think on mallet instruments, the way it works and the configuration of how it lays on the instrument, you probably want to take it perhaps on the 66 to 70 range. I think I'm somewhere in the performance around 70 is your dotted quarter. So anyways, when first initially learning this, realize that you're really dealing with 4 scales, and it's in the key of E major. It's dominant scale of B major you want to practice. Also it's relative minor and associative dominant minor, which is E minor, and B minor, you definitely want to practice as well. And something I recommend when you practice these scales to get you associated with the patterns that fall within the piece, the jig, you want to kind of practice getting out of the way a little bit. And so I recommend trying to alternate as much as possible to really create an even rhythm. Any double is going to be heard and will kind of transfer its sound into the interpretation. So I try and alternate, which means that a lot of times in this piece I have to get out of the way of the other mallet. So I'm doing a lot of that, if that makes sense. So working around the other mallet, so when you practice your scales, I'll practice them. So you're actually practicing and playing exactly in the same part of the bar. I recommend playing all the accidental sharps and flats, sharps in this case, in the center of the bar. And that way you create a really pure, consistent sound through the whole entire piece. It's really important on this one because it does end up being pretty fast, and we're talking about major minor scales primarily, that you're very accurate. And the way you're going to get accurate is by practicing really, really slow, and I recommend half tempo. So put your 8th note on, basically 66 to 70, and really spend a lot of time there, more time than you will fast eventually. Now, dynamics, obviously Bach didn't write any dynamics in most of his solo literature, so it's really up to you, and it's important that within the framework of what you're doing, the snare drum, the timpani, and the mallets, that you really view this as the more expressive opportunity for yourself. So you're going to obviously put direction in there, and you want to imply the meter. Obviously we're written in 6/8, so that 1 in 4 beat, that each dotted quarter is going to get a little emphasis. So as you play through these longer 16th lines, make sure you still have a really subtle sense and subtle implication of the dotted quarter, 1 in 4, primarily all the way through it, to give it that jig and that dance feel on that. So again, slow practice on this one. Infer and imply dynamics. And an easy way to kind of do that a lot of times is if the line ascends, you could crescendo. If it descends, you could decrescendo. And that works really well for the most part. And the outer endings, like the ending of part 1, or part A, I should say, can be a little bit slow, really subtle poco retard into that, and then at the very end, a small poco retard. Other than that, it really needs to keep fairly, and I say not metronomic time, but really conducted time. In other words, it's fairly consistent in its time maintenance. If you listen to the violinist, again, which I really, really heavily do, they take a little bit of liberty with some of the rhythm on a small, very subtle approach to it. And that gives it a little bit of character, and you want that in the piece. You don't want it to be just a metronomic exercise that you may play on snare drum. So anyways, this will be the challenging one of the 3. This will challenge you the most and will take the most time, and I really heavily recommend that you spend a lot of time slowly learning it correctly, work out a lot of stickings, try different stickings. But when you settle in something, spend a lot of time slow practice on it. So I wish you the best of luck and have fun with this one. Thank you.